Senate Bill 2006, I believe, is what we used as a justification to put this in where it is. And CCA found $1 million, or I'm not sure exact amounts.
That's including money for some other projects as well, but it was a good portion of that, the
So
better part of
Fund a
$1 million.
funding source, and they found, I believe this is out of Tacoma, is where you're getting these units.
I believe it's Everett, but yeah, they're a Washington company that manufactures.
And so we went through several different iterations of site plans.
Yeah.
What could we do on the Neawana? Because that is right on the Neawana. So you're obviously talking about sensitive area.
Yeah.
And the area is fully fenced, so it's shielded from public view, and there's trees in front, so it's also shielded from the highway as well.
Yeah, and just the proximity to Neawana was a big part of what took so long, was just the consideration of the wetlands. We had to have surveys come out and make sure we were meeting requirements and had the buffer correct.
And other challenges, of course, is the neighboring property. Of course, there was a driveway that they used for access to their property, but we found an easement for that property, for public easement, so we were able to make the entry from the north side instead of from the west side. So we didn't have to have access from the highway. And then, of course, there is a city street that's there. What is it? That's 21st or 22nd, I believe.
I don't recall which one it is, but it is a public street right-of-way that's undeveloped, that's directly adjacent to the private road that there's a public access easement on.
Right. And so we had to make sure we didn't, obviously we couldn't use that part of the property. And of course we had to make some accommodation for drainage for the properties because of the aquatic zone that's adjacent to the property. And so the units are self-contained. I believe they have 2 beds in each.
They can have 2 beds. It depends how you set it up. They're a little bit modular. You can have 2 beds with limited storage. We're planning, I think, 1 bed for them for the most part, but you can do 2 people if they know each other
2
quite well.
restroom facilities, common kitchen and meeting room, 24/7 supervision by CCA. There's parking for staff and bike parking for the inhabitants. Other than that, hopefully they'll break ground here shortly, and should be nice. Neighbors, of course.
Go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt. Just you have
go
a
ahead.
lot of detailed knowledge, but I appreciate your narrative through that.
Right. So, like I say, it's been a partnership. It's not just one group doing it. It's accumulation, of course. And if this works here in Seaside, maybe it can be replicated in other places like Astoria. So.
Yep.
And I know there are other parties that are carefully watching what you're doing and seeing if it can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's and the first step on people's path into something a little more permanent, right? This is an emergency shelter. We're not just for overnight, but hoping that people can come in and stay up to 18 months before doing something a little more permanent than that. And just looking at some of the track records of other similar locations that even the same company has set up their units for. I think the place in Vancouver was seeing 14 transitions into permanent housing in the first 6 months of their operation. And
Wow.
who's to say exactly how that'll play out here, but we're very hopeful for this first step.
Yeah,
I have a question, if you don't mind. Are there any age restrictions on who can stay there? Like if a family suddenly had an emergency need, would they be able to stay there, or is this more designed for like 1 or 2 people, adults?
They're more designed for single adults in those, but that has to be determined as we kind of move forward and get pieces in place. I think in general, it's going to be for single adults. It's a low barrier shelter, so there's family security concerns. I don't think it would be an ideal place for young ones, but obviously everything has to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, I appreciate that.
64 square feet wouldn't be much space for
No,
a family.
just thinking if they're in a car already, that might be better. Yeah,
It'd be a little more.
yeah.
You described where everything was on there. Maybe you could go over there and just, we don't have a ruler or a laser pointer or anything, but point out the specifics of it again.
Sure.
Jerome, if you wouldn't mind grabbing the microphone right there.
I can't read that.
Do I need to switch this on? It's on already?
Sorry.
Excellent. So this is Roosevelt Drive. I think this is the public easement that will have driveway entered, right? So here's the gate, parking area, a couple of walkways, and then each of these are the 64 square foot units. These three are are designated ADA units. This is the ADA bathroom setup, the regular standard bathroom.
So
Each of those is a bathroom shower combo.
how far apart are the individual units, side to side and
I think they're about 6 feet apart looking at this.
Across
This
the
path
pathway.
here is 4 feet wide and it's about 6 feet
Okay.
empty space between them.
So not much different while we have our housing 8-foot setbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
Well, and I can add to that this site plan has been reviewed by the fire department, been reviewed by Public Works. In fact, a lot of the revisions have come out of planning review, come out of what the fire department requires as far as access, the building codes, what they require for buildings to be certain distances apart for fire protection.
yeah.
Each one of these structures will be permitted and inspected by our building official. The pathways that you see around there, and as well as the parking lot, will be asphalt, and that's partially for the fire department. It's easier for them to get people out on their carriers on an asphalt surface as opposed to gravel, and then to ensure accessibility too for the ADA units and the other units there, the asphalt will certainly help with that.
Yep. Yep. The service office where 2 staff members can work inside there, and a 400 square foot community space building.
And the community space has kitchen facilities.
Most of the food preparation will be done off-site, so there will be some food storage in there. I think we may do a little barbecue area, and but it won't have a full kitchen set up there. The food is going to be brought in, and we'll serve a couple of meals a day at off-site prepared food.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Also, the bioretention pond on the corner.
this guy. Oh yeah,
Oh,
for filtration
towards the
and drainage.
river.
Yeah.
The units themselves do they have electricity?
They do have electricity and heat, also,
And
electric heat. And these really are the only ones that'll have the plumbing hookups as well. So everything has power and climate control, and then there's sewer and plumbing hookups for the bathrooms. Yeah. And there's the existing natural vegetation going to screen on this side. Be kept. And this is the food pantry property right here.
And the restrooms will be open 24/7 for them?
Yes.
Are you, I don't know if this is actually your part, but are they concerned about staffing? Like, we keep on having these shortages around here, and would a staffing issue ever possibly get it closed down if they couldn't provide 24-hour security?
We're not too worried about staffing at this point. There are a lot of people that we have worked with that are really excited to be part of this kind of projects.
Okay.
So I can't make any promises about what'll happen, but staffing is low on our concerns of,
Everything?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else I can point out up here?
Is that one really large tree there?
Yes, it is.
It
Yes,
is.
it is.
Okay.
Actually, there used to be a home right there where just in front of the tree right there. Yeah, there used to be a home in there. And then back in the late 80s, I believe the fire department used it as a burn thing. So the foundation's still there, so that'll be removed. And the water and the power and the sewer all come from that corner where the home was. So there already is a meter there.
So everything was ready, already there. Yeah.
The infrastructure is there. The power actually came from the back, but the power company decided that they wanted to do a drop from the front.
Oh.
But that may change.
It's also important to mention the whole site is going to be secured with 6-foot chain link fence, and I believe you're going to do privacy slats as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Along with potentially a gated entry to where it can be accessible only to the folks staying here and the people working and serving this community.
Yeah, and all depending on the fire department getting the access they need, and when there is staff 24 hours a day as well.
Yeah. The other part was, I know there's no buses right now, but there's a turn lane in there, which is a perfect bus stop for them to get to work or wherever they have to get to.
The turn lane into the property to
Into
the
the
north
property, right.
is wide enough that that could be a bus stop
Right,
going
without
north.
blocking the highway.
Yeah, that's right. Good.
Are there foundations for these?
They do not require foundations. We'll be doing the asphalt, but
And just, it's like a slab.
yeah, they need to be on flat ground with 12 contact points. So I think
So-
we'll build little platforms that they set on, and they'll be staked
So
in.
potentially at some point, since they're built on a slab like that, they could potentially be combined or larger, sort of navigate maybe some amount of flexibility there.
It would be possible to relocate them, and, reconfigure them if it was,
That's great.
Do you happen to know, once they break ground, how long they expect it to take? I mean, obviously some things will happen, but
Every time I thought I understood the timeline, things have happened to change that. So I don't know. I know that the setup and install can take 3 days once we're ready for them to
Really?
just show up and put them together. But there's site prep that needs to be done. The foundation you mentioned needs to be pulled out of there, the grading, the asphalt.
Yeah, and actually, doesn't the pallet company install them themselves?
This they do.
So they
Yeah.
come down from Everett and do all the installation. So it's pretty much a kit.
3 days was way quicker than I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of them, these units,
That'll
I
be
think, are already assembled. They need the ground ready and need forks to drop them into place. Yeah, and then these guys just pop up, and they'll have a team, and we'll have a couple of people working with them, so we'll learn a bit about maintenance and help it go a little smoother as they do it. But
And Jerome gets the job being the project manager.
do whatever I can to help it happen. Yeah.
The well, you said you're using the current buffer out there towards the west,
Yeah.
and I've driven by it. I've never stopped and looked. I'm assuming you could. I don't know whether there's grass, beach grass, whatever there now. You could make it so you could put some picnic tables or something, and people could haul their chairs out there or whatever. And that area right there too.
I think this space for sure. This seems a little more dense. There may be some areas that can develop into little.
The street side, the sidewalk side, there's a sidewalk that goes all along the front, and then there's a drop, a slight drop, except on the south end. And so you can't really put anything there. But once you get past the trees in the front, there's places for picnic tables.
Yeah.
And actually, people have taken old chairs out there and set up their own place to.
There is a piece of land too between the highway and the development that it's owned by ODOT. So this section right here is actually ODOT owned property. The fence line pretty much runs the property line for the site.
Oh, I didn't realize the fence line was on the east side of the trees. Okay, so it's right behind the shelters.
Yes, the straight line with the round circles is the fence line. The ODOT
That's
property
bad
has a
eyes.
pretty dense vegetative strip along the highway that, provided ODOT doesn't clear it, it'll provide a nice screen feature for privacy for the project.
Yeah.
That'll look nice.
Little.
Including blackberries.
Oh.
it's pretty narrow.
Okay.
Otherwise, we would have tried to provide for a better circular flow for bicycles and pedestrians through that property connecting into the existing sidewalk on 101. Unfortunately, with being ODOT property, we don't have authority to be able to do any kind of site improvement there.
Yeah, and there were several revisions of the site plan to kind of fit it together for efficiency, and it's this is our favorite. Yeah, we'll have some green space in here.
Well,
It's been like greenlit by the city, like it's moving along.
well, Jeff can explain that.
So House Bill 2006 was passed in the 2021 legislative session. And essentially what it means is the city can't deny an application for an emergency shelter regardless of zoning. That had a sunset date in 2022, but the legislature has moved that sunset date forward up until now. July of 2023 is when it sunsets, but I'm expecting them to move it forward again to keep this going. So this takes it essentially out of the land use process, and it requires the city to approve these types of applications provided they meet certain criteria, which CCA has demonstrated they meet the criteria for citing under this approval. So now it's just a matter of site plan approval and ensuring that the building code requirements are met. And when Jerome talks about the foundation systems, all of that's going to be set up to ensure that these structures don't blow over if we have an 80 or 100 mile an hour, 130 mile an hour wind event that comes through there. And like I said, that'll all be inspected and approved by the building official before any occupancy is given to them, as well as the plumbing and the utilities that come in. The city doesn't handle electrical inspections. The county does that county-wide. They handle the electrical program for everyone, but plumbing and structural all be handled by our office.
Yeah, and that's the phase we're at now, is putting together the more technical drawings for the plumbing and electrical and all the connections for review. And yeah, and I'm sure there'll be some iterations of that to make sure everything is right. But that's where we're at.
Exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, the fire department, the fire marshal, how we do our site plan approvals now, as you'll see on this one, it gets stamped by each department: Public Works, Fire, Planning, and our building official. So everybody's looked at this. Everybody has submitted. I can show you the other sheet that has a whole bunch of corrections and revisions on it. Back to Jerome's, I think you had an engineer set this up.
Yeah.
And then they provide the corrected site plan that has all the revisions on it, and we can stamp our approval, and it meets all the requirements that the fire department needs for access, to make sure we can get apparatus and an ambulance in there, make sure they're separated the appropriate distance for the building and fire codes, and to ensure that the site has circulation to be able to get in and out of with ease.
Yeah, and just can we go back down to all the stamps there? Just there was a lot of looks good, but what about this? And then looks good, but what about this? So we expect to continue that until we open.
Yeah, but this is the final approved site plan for the project. Of course, things can change depending on what happens with the building codes, and we can be flexible and try to change with it, so long as we still meet the fire and life safety standards that need to be met to ensure this project is a safe project.
Yeah, thank you.
And those are all standards that apply across the city, depending on what the type of it is.
That's correct. House Bill 2006 relieves the project from a lot of zoning requirements. It does not relieve the project from any building code
That's right.
requirements. So we still want to make sure that whatever we put in here is safe and habitable.
So we had a proclamation for May for Building Safety Month, and we want to make sure we're still following that.
Absolutely.
One of the major participants was Jeff Hinton. Mike Hinton's son was the engineer who did a lot. His company did a lot of the work on this project.
Yeah, no, he's still working with us on the next phase too. Yeah, it's been a huge
How
help.
about
Yeah.
Is this a project that could be financeable, do you think, at some point? Like, is it something that you've looked into the financing on?
No.
Maybe your neighbor might have a thought on that.
I think I think the grant approach is probably the correct way to go
right?
on this kind of project, and quicker.
Yeah. Well, I get, yeah, for sure that part.
You're not going to be able to charge rent.
Right.
They're movable, right? So they're not,
There's no
there's
permanent.
no foundation or anything like that. And so
Sure.
a bank would have a hard time, I think, loaning on that.
And there's no income.
Right.
But
But on the land,
On the land, you probably would get, yeah, I would assume that they would do that.
sure. What about insurance?
I have insurance.
So,
No problem.
okay. Because those would be the things that would stop something like this if you had, couldn't get insurance on it or some kind of
Yeah, they scratch
issue with that.
head.
Yeah, it would be hard to sort of find the right box for that.
Yeah.
So is this funded, or are you still trying to find funding?
This is funded.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome, okay.
Yeah.
I just, from that talk, I
Yeah,
was like,
we-
oh, wait. Maybe
No,
we
it's
need to decide.
funded, and yeah, we just need to get through the permitting process and break ground and get it set up.
Everything's done.
Yeah, I guess I was saying
Pallet, sorry.
refinanceable
Yeah,
later
I-
down the road here once
My
everything
heart
was
dropped when
done.
you started talking. I'm like,
Sorry.
oh, no. No, don't be, it's fine.
Yeah, actually, I believe the pallet homes are here, right?
Well, they're in logistic third-party warehousing now. They were ready for delivery. As you said, we started, last summer. So it's been a long time. We were hoping to by last spring to be in place, and they're in third-party storage, which charges us by the day for each pallet. So we're really hoping to get through this as
Yeah.
quickly as we can. I mean, not that it matters so much for this conversation, but we had budgeted for staffing for this time, and because we don't have staff in place there yet, we're just paying for the storage instead. So it's not a nightmare for the budget, but it is frustrating to have to put that money to storage instead of the team working with people on site.
Most of the housing projects like this, you can get grants for infrastructure, building something.
Yep.
But then you have to come up with other financing and make sure you can operate it.
Yeah.
And that's, in my humble estimation, is a problem with some of the things the state has done.
Yeah.
Particularly the hotel projects.
Yeah.
And some places are finding that an issue. Now others, looked ahead and figured out, okay, we need to make sure we have funding.
Yeah.
That's you don't have to answer this if you don't want to or don't know, but have you got any idea what the approximate yearly cost would be to continue to run this?
Oh, I'll have to get back to you on that. But
Well, that's all right. I mean,
yeah.
it wasn't part
Yeah.
of the presentation, so that's okay. But we've worked a lot with CCA and are greatly appreciative of the work that they've done. And stepping up to put this in Seaside is greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
It provides us with the next step beyond our camping ordinance, to try to move people out of there into permanent or not permanent. This is not permanent, but
No, but it's
one
the next
more
step. It's
One
better.
more
It's
step.
better than the camping, right? I mean, and
And
that's yeah.
hopefully we can have at least as good a success, if not better, than the ones that you've modeled it after.
Yeah, and we have high hopes.
On that
The
subject,
problem is trying to find that next step of housing.
yeah,
So
on this, is what characteristics of the size of this helped make it work? So as we're sort of thinking about trying to
Oh
do
man, for this kind of project, really, we just need some flat ground.
I mean, I guess
Yeah.
what I mean is like, if it had been twice the size, would you be doing twice the number of units
Yes.
still?
Yeah,
And obviously the demand is obviously there.
yes, yeah, yeah. I don't know what to say about that other than yes. If we had, just finding a place that community can agree on, that's the hard part. We've been. I think Viviana Matthews, our executive director, she's been looking for a few years for the property, right? And it's a big collaboration, and we had a lot of help and a lot of people in the community who do care and want to see some better solutions come into place. And with without their cooperation, we'd still be looking for places. Every time it seems like there's something that can work, somebody's got a loud enough voice and a good enough reason for it not to work there. So yeah, if it was twice as big, we'd try to fit twice as many units on. And that's it. These things are remarkable. Just looking at this manufacturer's portfolio, they set them up in parking lots, inside warehouses, on dirt fields, and anywhere that they can get some flat ground and do it. And as long as there's community support, they make it work. And that's what we need, community support and some flat ground, and we'll make it work.
So I'm just curious, is the thought that some of the people from Mill Pond will go directly to this area,
They
or?
would certainly be eligible for
Okay.
it.
Who will be
That's-
eligible?
That's up to CCA.
Okay.
That's not up to
So
the
they'll
city.
just go through the
Yeah.
process.
Right.
Yep.
And CCA is doing work there already. I mean, so it should be an easy transition.
Yeah, and there's like a federal kind of coordinated entry process where people come in and do a really extensive evaluation of their situation and needs and what opportunities for housing are available, and that will be an extension of that same coordinated entry process that will qualify people for this. Yeah.
Did you have the grant awarded before you had this site, or was it based on this site that you were granted the?
That's a good question. I feel like they were both kind of coming at the same time. I feel like we were always looking for funding for this kind of project and looking for the right place for this kind of project.
Okay.
And I think, that's they developed. Yeah, I was not involved in every initial step of that, so I can't say for certain what exactly happened first. But maybe Bill. Yeah.
I think the idea was there, so we found the property first, and then Viviana went out and found funding, and the funding was the final milestone to actually turn on the site plan,
Right.
and then approach the city, and have the meeting with,
I'm just trying to think about the characteristics of those kinds of things that would lend themselves to future thought processes in this, as you're trying to kind of decide, does a piece of property work that would allow a grant to actually happen because of certain characteristics. That's why I was asking the question previously.
yeah, the property first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there plans to have a community like this for families coming in instead of just individuals, or is it just?
There are several projects that are moving forward now. One of them, I don't know how much I can really say about it, but the Project Turnkey that the county's working on in Astoria at the old Columbia Inn site, different kind of setup, but that is geared much more toward families as well. They have, as it's a hotel, there's individual private spaces, and that has been put together through an urge to serve the families in underserved parts of our community there. So that's specifically for families fleeing domestic violence, Latin families with children. So sort of, yeah. But,
Yeah, and also to continue answering your question, I think there was a timeline on how long you had to use the actual grant.
yeah.
So you have a 1-year limitation from beginning to end. So it helps to have that spot identified first, and then.
Of course. Okay.
Yeah, and just
Because
say
the
from
permit-
our end, the programs and things that are available are changing all the time. And that's really our job, is to be on the lookout for what's available and what resources are available. So, Viviana's been searching for land for a long time. We've been looking for reasonable funding opportunities for a long time, and what's here today might not be here next year. And you never know. I think the best thing you can do is identify needs and keep looking for the spots where you could do something, and keep talking to us or other folks like us who are scouring the universe for ways to make things happen.
I think we're starting to see the other cities in the county. Astoria's made some different directions maybe than we have, but they're moving that direction. The county with the old Columbia hotel thing. Seaside's doing this. Gearhart and Warrenton have started conversations about what to do. So
Yeah.
I'm open to discussing any of this with any of the other mayors to try to make sure we're coming up with some kind of coordinated effort
Yeah.
and, bite off a little bit at a time and do the best you can with it.
Yeah.
And I think this is an excellent start. And I'm just thrilled it's in Seaside.
Me too. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. It's been a journey to get to this drawing here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Well, thank you.
Great work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerome.
Yeah. Thank you.
There's just a couple other updates on housing stuff. The County Regional Housing Task Force is kind of trying to figure out where we go from here because our main driver, Jeff Adams, left. He left us with some good ideas and things to go forward. We had a meeting of just a few of us last week before, whenever it was. So we're going to meet again on May 24th and figure out where we're going. Denise from Crest is taking over the leadership for now. We've even talked about funding a staff person perhaps at Crest through the county, the entire county and all the cities. So she's going to come back to us with some ideas. State legislation, there is all kinds of things going on, but one that is particular to Seaside, although it actually applies to any city on the coast that's within 10 miles of the coast. Our representative, Javity, down in Tillamook, put in a bill, HB 3442, that allows the city to have more flexibility in zoning and figuring out where we could put housing and not having to worry about some of the other issues. So we're kind of back in the beginning stages to figure out how we can create some housing just across the street and to the north of this project. And that would be more of the permanent housing. Perhaps 20 to 25 units would fit in that property. We haven't gotten that far yet. So we're in the very beginning stages of that, and then we'll figure out where we go from here with the good help of our community development director. One more thing on his plate. Another thing, this House bill is actually in the Senate and is in their housing committee, and they don't have it scheduled for anything else. And if it doesn't move by May 10th, I think it is, then it'll be dead. So we'll have to see. But it has had its hearing. And there doesn't appear to be anybody that's really against it. So we'll see. Another project that I'll just kind of mention in passing, there's a possibility of having a small ADU project model here in Seaside that we're working on, where it would involve allowing a homeowner to make a little income, and then the ADU would be rented to a low-income person, so that it helps two families at the same time. And we're making a little progress on that. It's kind of under a time constraint, but we have some really excellent prospects, I think. So we're looking for that, hopefully, to happen here fairly soon. Perhaps let you know more about it at the next meeting. It would be a really good model. There's actually state funds that would allow us to do that. And the problem is it has to be built by the end of the year. So... yeah.
So in that House Bill 3442, so is there any proposed changes to increase the density in residential single-family zones like Washington's been doing?
That wasn't really what this was addressing at all, no.
Okay.
This was more to allow Senate Bill 8 type projects to move forward without being worried about things where the land was sited. And we can go into that more later. But anyway, that problem has been worked out. And it's another thing we've been working on for a year, trying to figure out how we can get approval to use that site. And there were some problems with it. I think we've worked them out now. So hopefully we can move forward and get the next step here in Seaside. It's more affordable, subsidized housing. Anything else? I've scheduled a housing financing guest for next month. Andrew Mattingly from Craft 3 is going to come and tell us about Craft 3, basically. The other possibility, if I can ever feel like I can use some of her time, having Ariel Nelson, the housing lobbyist from League of Oregon Cities, present more than likely via Zoom where we're at and what came through the legislature that would affect our city, and probably do that in July after the session is over. And as always, if you have any ideas of anybody that has a fantastic idea, could come and present to us as well. So,
Yeah, whatever happened with that idea?
which idea?
The old school, this school, what do you call it? Over at Cartwright Park, the old school
Oh,
facility.
the old hospital.
Old hospital, right?
That was actually a zoning issue because it was zoned. It's R1 and the density, right?
Yeah, it's zoned R2.
Oh, it's
the,
R2,
The
okay.
density of dwelling units in there is pretty limited, but the building itself has some serious issues that would be pretty cost prohibitive to redevelop without a complete tear down. And that in itself is potentially pretty spendy as well.
How's the banking activity going for homes? Busy?
It's very, very slow.
Oh, that's not good.
No, it's not.
Interest rates aren't coming down anytime soon.
No, they're not. I think we just rose them again. I think they just went up.
Yeah, just reading that people that are wanting to sell their house are afraid to because they're going to have an interest rate on their mortgage that is sometimes double of what they have right now. Makes it very hard. Imagine, Mr. Popkin, might have something about that too?
I mean, I think it's the idea here is that if you have a loan that's at 3%, you're not moving unless you have to, unless there's something that's forcing you somewhere else because you're buying half the house value or worse. So most people are sort of sitting on the sidelines, including people who would be sellers normally, because they can't move up or move
Right.
down and effectively do it. So just being able to kind of sit from the sidelines and see what happens is what I think most people are doing. So there's plenty of buyers still looking, actually. And we actually, at the coast here, I think are in a much better position than a lot of places because we still have we're still a cheaper somehow alternative. And so there's an attraction about coming to the coast and knowing that you don't have to go in an office, maybe in Portland or Seattle. That's still causing migration here, but they don't have enough supply. And the reason we don't have enough supply is because there's no motivation for people to move because they can't.
Okay.
I did notice though that new unit on Wanna Drive is is it 20 units that's being completed on the north side?
The one next to
Furniture.
North Coast? Wasn't that supposed to be
It's-
40?
I think it's 40 units.
Units, it looks like they're close.
I think they're close on about half of them. I haven't been out there in a while to look. So I think, yeah, there's probably 10 buildings ready to go, get close, ready to go online. I think they're 10 fourplexes is what they put there.
Yeah, because that'll really help.
Well, Well, everything will help.
I,
Yeah.
mean, I believe they've been advertising too for rent in the expectation they'll get their C of Os soon this spring, and that'll help get people here in homes to some extent.
That'd be a great addition.
Yeah, the Warrington ones are almost done. Now the bus went down. So.
Well, that was one thing. It sort of has to do with housing, I guess.
Yeah.
Does anybody know people specifically that just can't get to work now?
Yes. Yeah, there's quite a few businesses downtown that have that going on.
And so that means businesses will be operating in lower hours. And
Yeah, I know that Controversial Coffee, they're actually going up and getting their employee so that they can have a partial day off. And then some people are trying to see who they know that is driving from, certain areas, but then that means that usually you'll have to change someone's schedule to align with that.
Yeah, and we're picking up people.
yeah.
We'll make do. Hopefully they find some money soon.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I've heard is Senator Weber, got a meeting with the governor this morning, and she recognizes the critical need here in the county. So they're looking for any avenue they can to get the buses back on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever they do, I'm sure the service will be much less than what it is now. It'll probably be emergency based for a while until they figure out what happened.
Yeah.
Not a good time.
Not the beginning of the season.
Yeah. Right on our first 80-degree day.
Yeah, that was comical.
When we had all the people from Portland here. Okay, well, do you want to go home 15 minutes early, or you want to just sit here
do.
and chat?
No.
Yeah, okay. All right, we're adjourned.
Thanks, Jerome.
Yeah.